Hola, ¿cómo está? Bienvenido.
Do it.
Bienvenido F1 or F off. Your audio pit stop for F1 news, interviews, and race reviews. Yeah, I don't know Spanish.
Like, I thought you were going to do the whole thing. I was like, I was going to be really impressed for a second.
Hold on.
Oh.
Let me.
Oh, snap.
We have the technology in this era.
We've got the power.
Let's see. Okay. All right, here we go. Okay. Yeah, translate from... I hate when Google Translate does that. It does from English to English. Like, yeah, duh. I mean, I know it's English. Okay, here we go. Bienvenido a F1 o F off. Su parada en boxes de audio para noticias, entrevistas y reseñas de carreras de F1. Soy tu anfitrión, Idris. And then you would say, y soy Gabe.
Y soy Gabe.
There we go.
Hey. All right, I'm gonna have to have
podcast.
I'm gonna have to have Terry double check our what is it? Our pronunciation and how well how we did with that. Welcome everybody.
Yeah.
Happy race weekend.
Yeah.
Idris, how are you doing? How are you feeling after like our weekend in India and everything and recovery?
I feel great. Real quick, I want to say it's also hilarious that we're talking about the British Grand Prix today, and we started off with the Spanish.
Yeah, maybe we should have like had that saved for like very
instead of go ahead.
I was gonna say very good timely manner. It's a good time for us. Like
we probably should have started with like, blimey, welcome to F1. Wait, no, that's Australian, isn't it? I don't know. George Russell says blimey all the time, so
he does.
Blimey.
Yeah. Blimey. I've picked up some I definitely feel like I've picked up some like little I don't know what you call it, linguistic things from different countries and different sayings and
sure
stuff.
Absolutely.
That I've noticed that I've done. But anyway, well,
I mean, I'm tired after that weekend.
To
answer you short.
And as you know, I had a real rough go of it coming
tell the people.
back. Well, okay. So I had I had a connecting flight coming through, so I was Columbus to Chicago and then Chicago to Portland. The flight from Columbus to Chicago is only like 45 minutes or so, but my flight was delayed, and I was like, hey, so I got a connecting flight in Chicago to go to Portland. Am I going to be able to make my connection with the delay? And the person behind the counter was like, yep, looks like you got 25 minutes to get there.
What?
I'm like, is that 25 minutes from boarding or takeoff?
What?
It's like, yep.
Wow.
Okay. So
what a response.
So basically I'm like, I landed, and of course when you're have a connection like that, you're just like stressing out. You're like, oh no, am I gonna make that connection? Am I gonna make that connection? You're just like, you're trying to get off the plane, but everybody's taking like 10 years to get their luggage off of the thing. And I finally get out and I find that the next gate is like just over the way, but they had almost already completely boarded. Like I just ran to the thing, got my thing scanned, and it was like all the way down the hallway. They were like the last people were getting into the plane. So like I just made that.
Sheesh.
And so I was a little miffed. And then that second flight was rough. 4 hours in the most uncomfortable chair in the world, with several children around crying, and one kid, I don't know who was louder, the kid crying or the mom yelling at the kid to shut up. And I'm pretty sure I heard the mom cover the kid's mouth a couple of times too when he was screaming. So like, mom of the year right there.
Wait. Here's a quick question. Did the mom actually told the kid to shut up?
Yeah, several times. She's like, Dylan, shut up! Like she just shouted it in the plane, and like I'm pretty sure I heard the kid like with like muffled screams like as he was like getting upset, and Yeah,
Oof.
it wasn't fun. And also, the guy next to me was very, very drunk and was just talking to everybody
Oh,
the whole
wow.
time and like making like live commentary, like everybody was listening. And I was like pretending to, well, I wasn't pretending, but I was trying desperately to fall asleep. But I was like caught in that weird like halfway sleep, halfway
Yeah.
not thing where like your heart's sort of like ready to just pump adrenaline into you to
Yep.
wake you up in case something happens. So, yeah, that was
Man.
not pleasant. And then, you know, I get back into town. My car had broken down before I left,
Right.
so that was stuck at my friend's place who lives on a marina. So thankfully, she was able to like let it stay there while I was gone. But I slept on her boat, and I'll tell you, like her boat, sleeping on a boat is a lot more pleasant than you might think it is. Like it is the natural motion of the water kind of rocks you to sleep. And you know, she has these really nice comfy bunks, so I just slept like a rock.
I'm sure it took you
got sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say it took you back to your womb days, right? Like for all of us.
I guess kind
just
of,
like rocking in some fluid, you know.
Yeah. And then so I had to get my car towed and get it fixed, and that was like just a whole thing, and it cost me a ton of money. And now I'm just like, you know, making do with what I can and just trying to survive the next couple of weeks, because that was a rough, like just out of the frying pan into the fire is you know, kind of the way that it feels, which you know, speaking of which, there are lots of people in this race, literally and metaphorically, who were thrown into the gulf of engulfing in flames.
Unbelievable.
So yeah, Idris, you want to give us our little talk about the British Grand Prix? Give us our little breakdown.
Yeah. So here's something interesting about the British Grand Prix. Its event name has now changed. I don't know if it has changed previously, but so the name of the official name of the British Grand Prix is now Formula One Aramco British Grand Prix, right? Which just says to me that Aramco is, man, they really are putting their stamp on everything now, right?
Yeah.
Because they are a title sponsor for Aston, one of the big title sponsors for all the like just FIA in general, right? And man, they're all over. I was actually surprised when I saw this, because I want to say I thought it was Heineken previously.
Heineken's still around, but not as
Yeah.
much as Aramco is. That, and it's going to be soon. It'll be called Formula One Qatar Airways British Grand Prix. That's probably what's going to happen next, honestly.
Or Walmart, right? I mean,
Yeah, or Walmart.
could you imagine a Walmart F1 team?
The Walmart Vegas Ace Hardware Home Depot Grand Prix.
Other title sponsor, Kroger, for those in the Midwest, or Aldi.
The Aldi's Olive Garden Applebee's Grand Prix.
Ooh. When you're here, your family.
When you're here, your family. It's just like they
man.
just, you know, hey, but like cater the drivers, give them let them carb up with some garlic breadsticks, you know, before the race, and some salad. There's someone just sitting there over the cockpit, like just grinding cheese into their lap. And it's like,
tell me when.
Tell me when.
Tell me when.
It's like happens during the pit stop. They're like, you know.
Oh man. Yeah. So yeah. Anyways. So with our Olive Garden Walmart event.
Yes.
Yeah. This is at the Silverstone circuit, which used to be an airfield, right? That kind of lends itself to some of the, I guess some people would say some of the boring parts of the track, but personally, I think Silverstone is a great track. It's got that grading that kind of harkens back to test track days, right? You know, a lot of teams would kind of prove their worth and test their mettle at this course. One of the funny, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think what it lacks in like elevation and like sort of physical features, it makes up for in really intense high speed cornering and just the speeds and the full throttleness of it. But I will say that, like, you know, historically, like Silverstone's been I think it's a good track personally. Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily always been the most exciting track to watch. Sure. But however, I do think that the cameras this year, which I don't know if that's Liberty Media or who it is, but like the camera work this year, I mean, you know, if anybody should get like a Rookie of the Year award at the end of the season, it should be whoever is in charge of doing the cameras, because like with Monaco, with this race,
Canada,
like whoever's the new camera positioning and the people controlling him, they're really making it look a lot faster than it has ever before on the TV. So good job for them. I'm into it. There was one shot too. It was like a stagnant shot, I think, from the start pit straight or whatever, and it was just like they're just wah, wah, wah. It was really awesome to see. So yeah.
So that is going to be our transition effect, if not for this episode in the future.
I wasn't loud
enough. So I actually never knew what city this event took place in, but it's Northamptonshire. Northamptonshire.
English cities have a very interesting names. It's all shires and Amptons and North Weatherspinshire Binberg. So
I guess that kind of makes sense with Tolkien now, where he got Shire from, right? Because lots of English cities are just named Shire.
For sure.
I guess that would be like the equivalent of like the villa or
Hello,
the town.
I'm from the city of Mordor. Mordorshire, Hamptonshire. I support the local Hammersmith orc team.
my local football club.
My local football club, the Orcai Hammers.
The Orcai. Oh my god, dude. These some deep cuts. That's nice.
Hey, I would 100% get into watching like a European football if they were dressed up like orcs.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Stuff. That would be amazing. Or if
rugby.
if their teams were like named after fictitious like fantasy characters. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, that's true.
No more animals. Let's just stop at that. Let the animals be.
Yeah. One really cool thing about this track is that Lewis Hamilton is your driver with the most wins with 8. Sadly, not today, but that was a podium, and that leads us to our fun fact where Lewis has had 14 podiums, including today at the track.
14.
That's a lot. That's a lot. 1950 was the actual first race on the track and the first race on the official drivers championship. So that's a lot of, that's really cool. That's some cool heritage.
Yeah, it's just like the genesis of everything, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, so that I think is why Silverstone is special to a lot of people and, to the sport in general.
Yeah.
It's another one of those sort of, it is a legacy track. And I know there's a lot of people who wanting to, move things forward and do new stuff and try new things. But, I don't know. I'm sort of have a little bit of traditionalness in me where I just like the idea of kind of continuing to do stuff that's the familiar and just add stuff around it, you know what I mean, and alternate, let's just do
absolutely
that. So
yeah or if they did a thing of like, oh, we won't have the track on the calendar for this year, go back and forth between different locations, like that's cool too, but at least keep it on the rotation, right? Yeah.
Well, it's like they did that for a number of years in Germany. They would alternate between Hockenheimring and the Nürburgring. It was like every other year would like transition. And I don't really think they haven't been to the Nürburgring in a while now. I think it's up in Hockenheim.
Yeah.
Which I don't really honestly know how I feel about it. I honestly, I mean, those tracks like either or. I think I like Hockenheim a little bit more than the Nürburgring.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I can't remember the last time I remember seeing a Nürburgring. I think maybe it was like 2012 or 2013 or something. Vettel was still in a Red Bull. So
yeah, wow, yeah, man, that's weird to think of Vettel in a Red Bull. That is a long time ago, and the man is retired now. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
We've had this discussion a bunch of times over the weekend. Especially like with a couple of the new people that we met, new followers of our podcast, where we were talking about how there's just that the Vettel dominance with Red Bull was a thing that happened, like it existed, and it felt different than this new one with Max. Like it's just something about the attitude of it, or just the way that it's going about, the perception of it just feels a lot different. But it was definitely, I mean, Vettel would just break out like a 5 or so second gap from the field in like, 2 laps or so, which is just, he was just gone.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the key differentiator is that helmet Marko has been unmuzzled.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Like I had this like note jotted down for my podium vibes, my vibe check later on, but helmet Marko is such a jerk, man.
He sucks.
Like, I mean, Nick DeVries is out here catching strays left and right, just like Kendrick Lamar, you know, like there's no reason for him to in an interview to be talking about, or he's asked about Checo, and then he's like, oh, Checo, he's doing okay, you know, his performance is really good, but that DeVries guy though, he's on thin ice. Like, what?
Yeah, well, like apparently they asked him about replacing Danny. Replacing Vries with Danny, and he apparently reportedly he smiled and said, "Well, we have the Pirelli test coming here in a second, so we'll see." And I'm just like, okay, it's just like, you know, if I was De Vries, I would be updating my resume. I would be, you know, going on LinkedIn, be like, hey, F1 driver, you know, worked at, you know, bakeries and coffee shops in my past or whatever. I don't know what I don't know what his deal is. But yeah, I would be. I just still think, it's just one of those things where it's just like it's wild that he is, you know, being replaced so readily and so quickly. They just have no patience, even though they're winning, like hardcore winning. I mean, I know like AlphaTauri's not, you know, it's their sister team or whatever. Yeah, but it's just like, I mean, is it really affecting your bottom line all that much? Like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like De Vries would have a lot more confidence in being able to figure things out if he didn't have the guillotine, you know, hanging over his head.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think for Red Bull, the way they look at AlphaTauri initially was a trainer, like junior driver training development type of program, right? And that, I mean, the only real success they've had out of that was Max, right? I mean, you had Kvyat. I mean, Carlos Sainz too, to a certain degree, but they just didn't have the space. They didn't have the slots for him, right? So that's why he ended up jumping ship and went over to, it was Renault on like a borrowed, like kind of lease contract, and then I think Renault full time, and then McLaren, and now Ferrari, right? So he's had his own success story, but after having left the program, right? Right. Same with Danny Rick, although he is now back at Red Bull, right? And then who else am I forgetting about? Pierre Gasly, right? They chomped him up, spat him out. Yeah. Alex Albon, same thing. You know what I mean? So it's a little I don't know. The only one that it's really worked for has been Max. Yeah. Just that like pressure cooker environment.
Here comes my Applebee's fajita hot take here. And I think I may have said this already. I don't know. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of talk about, like, well, you know, why can't Andretti Motorsport come into F1? It's like, well, there's not enough space for him. We don't have paddocks that can fit. I'm just going to say this right now. Sure. I do not think that an F1 team should have a feeder junior formula team in F1 alongside their regular. You know what? You want a junior feeder team? Do it in F2. Do it in F3. Do it in FE. Do it in F1 Academy. Do not have a second, you know, do not have a second place like punching bag in F1. Just don't do it. I know they have a different facility and it's like a different staff and everything, but like they should be cut loose from the Red Bull umbrella. I don't think it's fair, because it's like, if you're telling me that essentially a top tier F1 team has like control over another team on the grid. You know what I mean? Like, I feel that like they can't fight them. Like what if Yuki, and it was Yuki and Max fighting for, you know, P1? Are they going to tell Yuki to not challenge Max because it's Max? Like, you know what I mean? Right. Like, I don't think it's fair to other teams that want to come into the sport and do something if you have a team that's basically just like has like they're essentially just have their hand on a theater seat, being like, oh yeah, somebody's sitting here. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
or standing in the parking spot.
Standing in a parking spot. Yeah.
That's the one that really gets me.
Oh, my friend's gonna park here. It's just like, dude, I'm a car. You're a person. Get out. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's really frustrating to me. I don't like it. I don't think it's fair, and I don't think it's good for the sport. I mean, you know, technically Williams is for like Mercedes, but kind of not really. I mean, it's more like Williams is its own entity, and then like they're kind of just sort of supported by like Mercedes. I still feel like Williams should probably be more of its own independent organization. But yeah, I'm just gonna say, you know, AlphaTauri does some weird rebrand. I wish they would just get cut loose, just let them be on their own, see what happens, you know, or just say let Andretti Autosport buy up, you know, AlphaTauri and just take over or something, you know. But anyway,
that's a good point. I mean, I think it can definitely pose a conflict of interest in the event that the two teams that are affiliated are running close to each other in the standings, right?
Right.
Like, because if you're Red Bull and you're funneling money into AlphaTauri, right?
Mm-hmm.
And AlphaTauri is in that position right behind you, right?
Yeah.
If you're AlphaTauri, are you going to say, "Oh, it's okay, just like try to overtake," or let's just try to hold them up or something? Like, what incentive is there for Red Bull to then funnel more money your way in the following years, right?
Well, what if AlphaTauri was currently number 1 in the in the constructors championship, and Red Bull was number 2?
Right.
Red Bull's supposed to be the main team, right?
Right.
Like, what do you do there? That's like
it's a bad look.
Yeah, it's a bad look. It's like if you're Oreo and you make an off-brand cheaper version of your Oreos that become more popular than Oreos. It's just like, what do what was that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not a fan of it. I don't think it was great. But anyway,
we should talk about, we should have an episode dedicated to that, actually. I like that, and I have a lot more thoughts about that.
About off-brand Oreos?
Yeah. But no. But like
Hydrox,
which was the original, actually, and then Oreo came along.
Yes.
And actually, real quick fun fact about Hydrox: apparently, they named it that because the portmanteau of hydrogen and oxygen back in the day, this is like I think over 100 years ago, sounded clean, right? And they were like, "Oh, I think if people hear a dessert treat that sounds clean, they'll want to buy it," right? And it hit. It worked back then. But I hear Hydrox now, and I think of I compare it to Fabuloso, right? Just like the colored like liquid soap and dish detergent, and it's like, why is it like a fruity juice color? Like, I want to drink it.
Yeah, well, but when I hear Fabuloso, I think oh yes, I will clean with Fabuloso. When I think about a cookie, it's like, here, you want a Hydrax? It's just like, here, it's made with hydrogen peroxide. Like that's what I hear when I hear Hydrax. Yeah, I just think it's like some medicinal cookie, and I'm like,
like an apothecary.
Oreo is a fun thing to hear. It's like, oh, it's Oreos. This sounds like a mascot for like a kids show. Oh, here comes Oreo. Hey, kids. But anyway,
that's true.
I'm just exercising all my vocal talent today. So anybody out there that needs some, voice acting here, I'm your man.
Let's hop right into this. You want to dive into quali?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll talk about quali.
Yeah.
Quali was good. I'll admit I was a little cheeky yesterday, and I watched qualifying during work.
Ooh.
To be fair, there was only 4 customers that came in all day, so and I'm normally normally left to my own devices to just do my own thing and not really interact with customers anyway. But anyway, I was watching it. Obviously, the rain kind of played a bit of a factor. A little bit. It was kind of like a tease. It was like a tease of rain because it wasn't really raining per se throughout the quali, but it was definitely wet, soggy conditions out to begin with, and that definitely caught out some people, some big names, including Sergio Perez, who unfortunately this was his 5th time out in Q1, and this time it was honestly because the track was evolving, because I mean, the end of that Q1 session was insane. I mean, it was just bing, bing, bam, 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 everybody was just getting first, second, third, first, second, and they're just pushing all each other down because those racetracks, they evolve quick. I mean,
really quick.
The more that your car drives on that road, it disperses the water, and so the guy behind you has way less water to contend with than even you are just in front of him. So that track was evolving so quickly, and we had a brief moment where Albon and Sargent were P1 and P2.
Yes,
it was one of those just freeze the clock. Let's enjoy that moment.
Yep.
But Perez, I think they were expecting more rain. And so they put him out really early to try and get that banger lap in, and I think he just, the track evolved too quickly, and he didn't have enough time to to actually get out and complete what he needed to. So
it sucks. I mean, because I don't know where, because 5 races ago, I can't recall off the top of my head where did he start? F1 2023 season calendar. The whole point I'm trying to make is just I don't know what has happened for him to kind of just fall off of his race pace like this, or his qualifying pace, because he typically performs pretty solid in quali. So I'm surprised that it's been this tough for him.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it's the thing that I think we've said this about Perez too. I think his greatest quality that he has as a driver is that he works very hard.
Yes.
He is a hard working dude. He is not a slouch. And so I think that is really the important thing. I think that's what's really kind of sort of salvaging his performances is that he'll have a bad qualifying, but he'll be able to crawl stuff back. Although Mark Webber apparently like poo-pooed all that and was just like, oh, it doesn't matter if he can, come back up the field. I can do that. And it's just like, all right, Mark. Well, you haven't driven an F1 car in a number of years here, pal. So, let's calm down a little bit and let's not completely devalue, Sergio's performance. I don't understand why everybody kind of comes after him, man. They come for him so hard, and I don't need to. It's not necessary.
That's kind of surprising to hear him say that. That's almost kind of like punching down in a certain way, especially with him having been on the team and having left the sport. I don't like it when former drivers do that kind of thing, where they come in and just start talk trash about the current generation.
I mean, at least when it's related to their performance or whatever.
Sure.
Like if it's like if it was like somebody says something or does something really egregious on track or whatever, and a former driver's like, hey, like that's not cool. That's not the way we do things. That's one thing. But like, if you're just like making comments about a driver's performance, like, I also, I mean, with a driver who, by the way, is like just seemingly constantly under fire from his own team all the time. So it's just like, I feel like Perez he just needs to kind of to get a little bit of a break. But
that comment kind of, it reminds me of Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite. like you see those mountains over there?
How much do you think I threw a football over the mountains? The coach would have put me in fourth quarter. We would have been state champs, no doubt. No doubt. Yeah, that's kind of like that. I mean, but I will say, just to kind of finish up my thoughts with qualifying. Definitely a good qualifying. Definitely had some surprises in there, and lots of demonstration of car control. You can tell like who knows these conditions and who doesn't. The old veterans, Hamilton and Alonso, they had a little bit of car control scary moments, but like they, were able to recover it well enough and, be able to keep going. Hamilton had that there was a really intense moment where he spun, but he like kept the momentum in the car to keep himself out the gravel.
Yeah, that was great.
That was just like, he knows what he's doing, even though he has to like reset. He recovered the car and didn't destroy the whole session. So that was just a good example of car control. I also, like I said too, I want to shout out Williams for doing they were showing some real strong pace during qualifying, especially Albon. And it kind of translated pretty well into the race actually for Albon. So that was a good sign for them.
I would say Logan Sargent he should honestly really be taking a look at what Albon's doing right, because Albon he took some time off, came back, and he is killing it. He's doing a great job, right? And
yes,
I just love seeing how he's racing now. He's racing like aggressively. This is the Alex Albon that I think everyone was expecting, right?
Right.
And he's doing it. And I think Sargent's really lucky to have a teammate like Albon who is not. I think he's there to help him out, right? But it's not. Again, Albon doesn't look or Sargent doesn't look at his data, so take that for what it is.
I think that we're realizing that Red Bull is a organization where if you are the most arrogant of arrogance, then you will survive and thrive in Red Bull. But if you're like any hint of like a more modest driver or of any kind of any sort of level, they're just gonna chew you up and spit you out.
Yeah.
So. Hopefully Danny, that doesn't happen to Danny if he ever gets back into a Red Bull, but time will tell. We'll see. Like Perez and De Vries are kind of like, they're just sitting on the chopping block, and I think Red Bull loves the drama. I think they're just sitting back soaking it up. Honestly, they love people are talking about this. They just want them to.
Any publicity is good publicity, right?
Right. Well, Idris, let's talk about the race. Let's get through it. Let's talk to it.
All right. So. Clearly, McLaren, they need to stick with these nice liveries because Lando, like the overtake in the beginning was just so beautiful on lap one. I was so happy to see that. And again, this is, if there's a weakness that Max Verstappen has, if there is a crack in the armor, it is his starts. I don't know what's going on I know this is an issue that's kind of been talked about a lot in the media circles of, what's going on with the clutch on the Red Bull. I think there is genuinely some kind of slippage or some issue going on with the clutch that is not allowing Max to really just apply that power like as smoothly, as reliably, as consistently as possible as he would like. But it doesn't matter because in the end he always ends up winning or passing people on track, just due to the sheer pace and performance of that Red Bull. But regardless, that was just an excellent overtake by Lando. He held it down, and it was great to see Piastri right off jump just like really being in the thick of things, right? I think just a comment in general about Piastri, he has shown himself, I think, to be really solid under pressure. He doesn't crack really, and he's got a lot of good. I think he's got a lot of strong composure for the experience level he has, and coming in as a rookie like this. I think this is an excellent race for McLaren. I had written down here, now this is pod racing. And that's a little throwback to
I just imagine Lando in like with the helmet on, you know, like just like whoa, you know.
Now this is pod racing.
And have like Max as that one guy with the who's his like competitor or whatever. If I had the time, Sebulba. That's right. If I had the time, I'd be doing some photoshops. There might be some retroactive things, but we do.
That's amazing.
Amazing. No, 100%.
Yeah.
I was gonna say maybe Red Bull's maybe the cost cap problem was in the clutch. Maybe that's where they had to cut corners was their clutch, and
it was the catering in the clutch, right?
The catering in the clutch, apparently. They had to find somewhere.
I mean, eventually Max did pass him on lap 5, but it was thrilling to just see Lando really fighting. And McLaren came with some big package upgrades for this weekend. So whatever they did seemed to have worked. Granted, it could have come down to tires and track temperature as well, having some kind of significant impact.
Yeah,
but it just seemed to have handled it really, really nicely. What's also interesting too about Red Bull and McLaren is that they are both using pull rods at the front of the car, right? And typically you would use I think it's push rods at the front of the car, front of the suspension, pull rods in the rear. But both Red Bull and McLaren are using pull rods. Let me just double check that.
Push and pull and rods. So whatever gets the car to go uppity and the downity, and it moves to the left and to the right, and you must go right to go left.
Yes. It's pull rods. Pull rods in the front. Yeah. So it's interesting that those were the top teams, I think, on average, right? When you look at the final standings. So does it have something to do with it? Probably maybe low distribution on the chassis, that sort of thing. But but no, it was cool. I was really happy to see the first few laps with how McLaren was really handling things. One thing I wanted to talk about here was our boy Sainz. He is back to impeding and moving under braking a lot. He is not as smooth of an operator as we thought he was. Any thoughts on that? He was doing a whole lot of that during the race, it seemed like.
I'm trying to think. He's more like he's being less of a smooth operator and more of a I need to have another song. I need to come up with another song to represent. It's like he's driving definitely more reckless, I think, at this point, because it's not the first time that he's been doing some impeding and some dodgy stuff on the track, you know what I mean? Because that happened, that was happening in Canada, during the qualifying, and there was a couple of hairy moves, I think, during the race in Austria. It's just like, it's tough to say, like, and he had that moment where he lost like 3 places in one corner, including to his teammate. You know what I mean? And so like I feel like Carlos is, I think he's losing a little bit of his focus. You know what I mean? It's I don't know what's going on. Who knows what's going on in his head and what's actually happening behind the scenes? But that was definitely a shaky move. I definitely noticed that, and Russell complained immediately. So
yeah, wild. Speaking of Russell, lap 12. He was talking about rain again. This guy, is he just like the sweatiest F1 driver of all time?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's real sweaty. Yeah, because it's just like, dude, maybe they should, like, I don't know if there's some way that they can, like, I don't know. If I was George, I would probably lean into it. Just like have a helmet that like just is just your face really sweaty or something, or like, or maybe just like put like little windscreen wipers thing of like the top of your helmet as like a little joke.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if that was actually subtle, but like I think he's just maybe his skin is just so smooth, because he's like he looks like a prince, and maybe like his pores are just so small, his skin is so smooth that there's not enough surface tension to like hold the sweat on his face, so it just so easily just flies into the
Shoots
front
off.
of the visor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like maybe that's the problem he's having. Maybe he needs to rough up his skin a little bit. Just like puts scrape some sandpaper. So I don't know. But yeah, I mean, who knows? But there definitely wasn't a whole lot of rain. I mean, there wasn't really any at all. It was. The clouds were looming, but they kept away. They kept their distance. So I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse, but a rainy Silverstone would be an interesting race to witness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Usually is.
So that leads us to the next big event during the race. Magnussen's car caught on fire, or his engine. Sorry. PU just died on and failed on him. I feel really bad for Magnussen. It feels like he has not been having the hottest season so far. He's been outperformed by Hulk a lot, and he's just been taken out by Vries a couple times without being asked out on a date. So I don't know if he I don't know what's going on his side, but he seems cooler and more cool-headed about this. You know what I mean? I think him having a kid maybe helped calm him down a little bit.
Yeah,
but
well, I think
that
I would say that I think Haas recognizes that it's not their drivers that are causing their bad luck right now. It's other external factors, and I think that's I think gives a driver some calm, because like you can't do anything about mechanical failures.
Sure.
You can't do anything about somebody pushing you off track. You also can't do anything about somebody like taking out your front wing and forcing you to there are external factors that are out of your control, and if you're doing everything that you can as a driver, I think your team can recognize that. Sometimes you just have bad years. Sometimes in De Vries's case, if everything that went wrong with him was not out of his control, like that would be a different story probably. But he just he's just not able to perform as well and as much as he pertains to be able to do. So yeah, I think for the Haas crew, I think they're just kind of having an off year. I don't necessarily think their car is super uncompetitive. I think it's actually I think it could potentially make some stuff happen. Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad that they're not like imploding as an organization. I think they're still sort of just trying to have some fun and
Yeah, which is really important, and it's nice to see them treat their drivers well this year.
No, for sure. Poor Mick. So next I think we should just talk about really quickly, honestly, like I want to say that the Williams crew as an organization doing such a great job.
Yes, absolutely.
And there's a lot of positions scooting up and booting up, especially after Magnussen's safety car, which would included Hamilton, who really benefited from that.
Yeah, big time.
And I think one person who did not benefit from that was actually Charles Leclerc, because he had pitted a bit earlier than that, and it was just kind of bad luck and bad timing for him, and so he just got pushed down that order quite a bit.
Yeah,
I think he came out P12. So,
Yeah.
Which, I think the safety car is always going to be something that's going to shake up a race, and you never know when it's going to hit. So I think that it was definitely ultimately, I think a saving grace for certain drivers, teams and certain drivers race, to basically be able to recover what they could. So
yeah, absolutely.
The next thing I think, there's a couple of things I think are very important that happened here, that I think we need to discuss. I think the most important thing I want to start with is we need to talk about Lance Stroll.
Dude, okay. He is costing this team like a good position in the Constructors' Championship right now. Like, if you look at all of the results of the races thus far in the season, the number of times he has been out of the like point positions it's too many, right? You can't just. I mean, he's dead weight right now, right? Like, and this is not like a thing of not liking him. This is just talking purely about performance.
Yeah.
If you are Lawrence Stroll, right, or if you're like the head of the team, or if you're Mike Crack, I think he's like the team principal. What do you do? Like,
well, I'm gonna put this into perspective a little bit. Okay, so Lance Stroll has 6 seasons under his belt. Okay, 6 seasons, right? Lando Norris and George Russell have been racing since 2019. Okay, that's 5 seasons. Okay, Pierre Gasly came in as a rookie the same year Lance Stroll did, and Charles Leclerc has been racing around the same time too. He came in like 2018 or 2017 or 2018. And guess how many of them have at least a podium? All of them. Multiple wins, podiums. Guess who doesn't have a single podium? Guess who, just did not ever finish on the top really at all. He came close. It's Lance. And he cannot, and here's the thing, he cannot claim that it's the car, because he, for the most of his career, has been at least in a relatively strong midfield team. Like George Russell ran for Williams, you know what I mean? Like Norris was lucky to hop right into McLaren, but even at that point, like he was in McLaren when they were in like the lowest of the low. You know what I mean? Gasly ran in AlphaTauri and Toro Rosso, and then you have Pierre Gasly was the same sort of, or that's I said Pierre Gasly. Anyway, like the fact of the matter is that the people that came into the sport with him and slightly after him, like relatively around the same time, had been doing so much better than he has. He's just been like doing like nothing. And here's the thing, I honestly, like I'm gonna sound like a curmudgeon, and you know what? That's fine. Okay. You can call me a curmudgeon. It's okay. I'm not mad at you. You can whatever. I don't care how nice of a person he seems. I do not care how relatable he seems. I don't care. Like, for me, it's like there's a difference between an underdog and a person who is just not doing the job. And Lance Stroll, to me, is just, he's driving after 6 years. He's still driving like he's a rookie. He's still just bulldozing through corners. He literally went completely off the track and then rejoined, just flew right into Gasly and destroyed Gasly's car and just ruined his race. You know what I mean? You got a 5-second penalty for that. And, Martin Brundle said that he thought that wasn't strong enough. And I kind of agree, because not only were it wasn't just he left the track and gained a performance advantage, which he had already done too, mind you, like in a couple laps previously, but he went off the track and he just jumped right back in and just punted Gasly and broke his suspension. So he ruined another driver's complete race because he because he was bad, you know what I mean? And so like I just don't, I don't know what to think or say with that, you know what I mean? It's just like, how are we supposed to reconcile this? How are we supposed to fix this? I mean, because he's been given every opportunity in the world, and he's just not. He hasn't shown it.
Yeah, I'm very confused myself. Like, and if you're Alonso, right? Alonso doesn't seem to be the kind of person who's like in a mentorship type of state of mind right now, right? I'm sure a little bit of that is happening, right? But I'm sure if you're Alonso too, you're also looking like, yo, man, like, dude, we got to be doing better than this so we can like get some points for the team here, right? Like, because if you're not going to win the drivers' championship, well, let's get the next best thing. Let's win second place in the constructors, right? And right now, like, Mercedes is beating them right now, and honestly, between the Aston Martin and the Mercedes, like, Aston Martin should be winning, right? Just based on the performance of the car that you can see like weekend to weekend, right? Although Mercedes, they do a great job of developing the car every single weekend. And get things, maybe practice on Friday is a little rough, but then by the time race day comes, they're fine. They kind of figure it out. But man, honestly, he is costing them points. And also just to verify, I did double check. Lance does have 3 podiums, and they're all in 2020.
Really?
Yeah, there were a couple. I recall there were a couple third place finishes. And I think some of them might have been from penalties, if I remember correctly. It's been a while, but regardless, he's had a couple of podiums. But his form since then, I don't know. It's I mean, every point you're making is right? That like at a certain point you kind of have to say what the heck is going on, and
and also too, I think you might be right, because it's like I don't remember. I mean, I remember him almost getting a podium in Azerbaijan, but Bottas beat him to the line in like a drag race, basically,
which was sick.
Like, I remember that, and I guess I mean, yeah, like I mean, I don't. The thing is, I think that's the problem right there. And I mean, hey, maybe it's my bias because I've never been a fan of Lance Stroll, but I just don't remember those. Like I remember that when Lando, was on the podium. Like I remember Gasly's first win. You know what I mean? Like I remember these things because they were memorable and they felt really genuinely earned. Sure. And so, yeah, and I mean, I just cannot help but feel that like the nepotism problem is a thing. But even outside of the nepotism, it's just I don't think that he is good enough to be able to, be winning races unless he was just in a car that was just more dominant than everybody else. You know what I mean? Like if you put him in equal machinery with everybody else, I don't really think he would be able to compete. I genuinely don't think so. I don't think so. And I just think that his seat is valuable, and I think it's about time that somebody gets the chance to try and do it, because it's like this is ample opportunity. I kind of have similar feelings with Logan Sargent and Williams, because Albon clearly is able to pull out some more performance out of the Williams than Sargent is.
And you can't say it's a rookie problem, right? Because look at how Piastri performed today.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Piastri did really good. And he was the golden boy that everybody wanted. And so he's kind of showing that, he was in a McLaren. McLaren was doing really bad, but like they've had a couple of moments of good race results this year. And then these upgrades just seem to, I'm hoping it's not just the track. Like I'm hoping it's, the whole thing. Like I'm hoping that like they're just, across the board just improved everything for all the races and can adapt, because I want to see some more McLarens up on the podium if we can do it. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, that's my hot take on Stroll, and it continues to be my hot take for the Maple Leaf Ragamuffin, as I like to call him.
Yeah, that's our Mamma Mia Scuderia for today. Not even about Ferrari.
No, yeah, it's the
Aston.
I don't know. I'll have to think. Aston Martin.
Astonishingly Aston. That sounds like a 1970s limited run of Spider-Man.
Yeah, I don't know. I my brain is not at full capacity right now, so I can't come up with these things that quickly. Yeah. But you understand the spirit of what I'm trying to get across.
I feel you. Okay.
Well, let's talk about that podium. Let's talk about how that shook out. Because
podium vibe check.
I'm super glad that the British fans were able to get two of their golden boys on the podium there with Max also there. I was really hoping that they were really gonna be able to make more of a challenge, but I am surprised that they made as much of a challenge as they did. So I'm really glad for both of them. And Hamilton, I think between the crowd and the fact that it's his home race and just I think he likes the track. I'm not surprised that he was able to pull out a podium here.
Yeah. What was cool is just hearing the roar of the crowd. I love when you're watching a race and the local hometown hero is on the podium, right? Or like performs really well, and they get interviewed, and you just hear the roar of the crowd. It's so cool to hear, and that's got to feel so cool to be there and to hear that from your fellow country people, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. The whole time when I'm watching this race, I was just thinking about this compared to what we saw in Austria, and I thought like, this is more of what I would like to see and expect in an F1 season. This kind of racing, this kind of a race. Even though what's funny is that there were also track violation problems at this one too, because Norris had gotten a black and white flag.
Yeah.
For doing a similar thing, and it has to be a psychological thing. It really does. It has to be. There's no wall. There's no barrier. Therefore, I can push my car further into that portion of the track. I know that different speed. I know these cars are a lot faster than they have been in the past, and just the cornering speeds are up. But I can't help but feel that there needs to be an adjustment on the driver's side to be able to know how to keep the car within those parameters and not just try and do it's like just adapting to what the car is going to do. You know what I mean? Right. It's like Jenson Button when he was talking about driving that NASCAR, saying it's like, oh, it's really heavy and it's really big, so he had to adjust how he approached corners basically than he would in an open wheel car that or if a car has no power steering as opposed to power steering, there's a different way you approach it. You have to adapt to it. And I think that these drivers are just, for some reason, I don't know why. It's they just don't seem to be trying to or wanting to adapt as much as they probably should to keep it within the lines of this track. And I think that each of them, if they figure if this guy can do it, then I can do it. Maybe I can get away with it. Who knows? But I think it's definitely an ongoing conversation that needs to be had. And I think that whether it's the tracks that need to change or the cars that need to change, something needs to be adjusted in order to not have to keep doling out track limit violations. You know what I mean? So who knows? But I really quick though, I do want to get your opinion on speaking of tracks and changing tracks. I think in light of what happened this weekend to that driver in was F3 who lost his life at Eau Rouge. I think we should talk about Eau Rouge really quick and the Belgian track.
Yeah, absolutely. Give me a quick second. Yeah, go ahead. You lead off.
Yeah, I just the conversation is being had about Spa and the Eau Rouge corner because Eau Rouge it's a weird feeling that people have because it's such an iconic corner, and because of the nature of its speed and the way that it's positioned. It's hard to the idea to see it go in the way that it is, but the loss of life because of the nature of that corner is it's something that needs to be considered. I mean, we almost lost Lando Norris too, if you remember, last year, because he had that big crash during, I think, qualifying or a practice session, and Sebastian Vettel pulled over and checked to make sure he was okay. And I think that I don't think it's necessarily just the corner itself. I think that it's the fact that the wall encroaches on the corner from the right side as the drivers go up. And I also think that the raining conditions affected some of that too, where they were just, the visibility was so low, the drivers couldn't see anything. They weren't slowing down, and they just had that big accident. The Indy cars, when we were at Mid Ohio, had introduced these fins on the front nose that were supposed to disperse water away from the windscreen in order to try and increase their invisibility. But I don't even necessarily know if that's the case or that's the problem, as much as it's just the water that gets kicked up from the back of the cars being basically a smoke screen. So what would you change? What do you think would be a better solution? Do you think that we should try and preserve that corner like it is, to try and because it's so iconic? Or do you think that it would be better to straighten out that corner, instead of having it like a really intense left and right, make it more of just a slow grade, more of just a straight line almost up over the hill? Sure. What do you think?
Well, I mean, there's a couple things to consider here. First off, I want to say the Dutch driver's name is Delano van 't Hoff. Right. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Really young guy. He was 18, and may he rest in peace, and may you know, may his family and friends just be able to heal from that, right? That's not an easy thing to deal with at all. That's the worst possible scenario. And I think you have to think about it through the lens of both the drivers and of safety of the sport, right? When it comes to the safety side, the goal is, you know in those movies or in factories, you'll see like this many days since an incident, right? Or a close call or something, right? You want that to say like infinity, right? Like it's like it never happens, right?
Right.
So in order to get there, the thing to do would be to change the corner such that you never get any kind of incidents like that, right? So that would probably entail straightening out somewhat, because I don't think you can say you can't introduce like a speed limit there, right? This isn't this isn't a freeway. This isn't like the Autobahn or where road traffic is driving. So you'd have to do something that slows the drivers down there, right? Or at least makes it safer for them to pass through there. Maybe chop up bits of the track and just add in a chicane, right? In a couple places, and that slows them down because you're introducing braking zones. So you're not going to hit as high of a max speed. But then on the other side, I think you also have to consider the drivers and what they want to do, right? Because for them, I think they want to race and perform at the peak of their ability, and just push the envelope and see how fast I can go, right? There is an inherent risk and danger in doing all of this when it comes to motorsports. So really kind of relying on them to say what is the limit, right? While also factoring in what the limit should be from like a societal point of view. That would be like what the safety team is kind of determining from the FIA. Like what kind of safety or what kind of danger is tolerable, you know what I mean? And I don't know what the answer is to that necessarily. I'm sure we're going to hear a lot from drivers across all motorsports about what should and shouldn't be done, and I think their takes should really be the ones we listen to. But at the same time, there is, if the FIA can come in and do something about it and make the track safer, absolutely that needs to be done, right? But something that just makes everyone happier and feel safer about it, because no one wants to go to a race and watch someone lose their life. No one wants that, right? No one wants you don't even want to see a crash, you know what I mean? No. The reason people stand up and go like, oh my god, that's crazy with the crash, is because it's nuts, right? Like you stand up because you're excited, because, and it's not necessarily an excitement like a positive excitement, right? It's excitement of, there's a change in state, so therefore I want to see what's going on, right? Is everyone okay, and then luckily the driver climbs out and everyone claps, and we can resume the normal racing, right? People don't want to see crashes. People don't want to see death on the track. So whatever we can do to stop all of that, that's what needs to happen. That's my take on it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. And I think that the big part of the reason why that corner is so difficult to change, and what makes it dangerous to begin with, is because the elevation change is so intense.
Yes.
The drivers come up as soon as they crest that hill. It's like when you're going over bumps on a bumpy road, you crest over a hill, you suddenly go light. Even though these cars have a really intense downforce that gets pulled over, and that gets compromised in any way, they're it's just they're out of control. Like, it's just that the speed is so high, that it's just so I think I feel like there are ways that you could change that corner, but what would happen is that it would fundamentally change the entire nature of that corner. It would not be the same corner.
Right, exactly.
And I don't know if just keeping it a straightaway, like keeping it almost like a straight line into the straightaway, would be more effective, into like a heavy braking zone and then a little chicane before the next straightaway, almost like they do with Coda. Like they kind of, you go up the hill and then you kind of brake, or shifting it, mirroring it to the other side, because like if you go to the right rather than to the left, the entrance to the long straightaway is kind of angled towards the left side or the right side of the track rather than the left, and so it's more of a straight line going from the right side into the straightaway. That might kind of iron out some of that movement, because I think if you keep it more in one direction, it would be a lot more stable. Or if they just blow out the walls and just open that whole area up so that even if there is an incident, there's plenty of room for the drivers to sort of go off and avoid and dodge and what have you. So it's a difficult question. How do you solve a problem like Eau Rouge? It's a tough question, and I think we're just at this point where these cars are so advanced and so evolved that it makes it difficult to really be able to effectively make changes that are going to work, because something's always going to come up that's different, so especially at a high speed track like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I don't know, we'll see what they come up with, but I hope they come up with a effective solution, because maybe we need to just be more careful about rain conditions. Like, maybe they need to have some sort of metric for the amount of rain coming down, some way to gauge that in order to understand when are the rooster tails just too dangerous to be following a car behind. You know what I mean? Like, maybe that's what we need to figure out. Who knows?
Well, what's interesting is that so while it was along the same straight as Eau Rouge, it wasn't on Eau Rouge in particular. It was down the Camel Straight, which is immediately after Eau Rouge, right? But you're carrying all that speed through it, right?
Exactly.
And it still does that little bit of a kink in the path, right?
Yeah.
Just as you crest the hill, or you're beginning to. So it's that whole area is just so fast, man. Like that is, and that's kind of that's the thesis of motorsports, right? You want to go super fast, and all of these drivers want to, right? They all want to race at the pinnacle of motorsport, F1, in like the fastest machines around. But we need to make sure that it's safe, and because we don't want a repeat of this, right?
No, we don't. Especially because, especially when it's people as young as it is as that. It's like they just have so much potential in their future, in their career. It's just it feels like the sting is even harder when it's somebody who's only 18 or 19 years old, and they're just starting their career. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's rough. Well, I hate to, it sucks to try and end this on such a dour note. But maybe we should just end something with just a little bit of positivity.
Sure.
Idris and I have been talking, and we are starting to narrow in on some merch, some shirts.
Yeah.
And we're pretty excited. We actually might do almost like a rebrand, if you will, with a new graphics card for the podcast and everything. And it's definitely gonna feel a lot more fun and very, very 90s, very 80s, 90s,
very us.
And I guess ultimately, if you're listening, if you made it this far, thank you. And I want to reach out to you guys, and I think we'll do maybe a poll as well. What other kinds of merch would you be interested in seeing us sell? Do you want flip-flops with our face on it? Do you want pins that say FUFO? Do you want hoodies? Do you want hats, shirts? What other kind of things would be interesting to you? I mean, because as far as I'm concerned, I think shirts and stickers are a good start.
Yeah.
I mean,
pins.
Enamel pins are fun. Hats are always fun. Maybe we do some, off, some weird kind of wacky stuff that you might not think about from us. That could be fun and interesting. It'd be great if I could do a fajita skillet that just says, hot takes on it. That would be great. I would love that. But yeah, we're really excited about it. We had a couple, have a graphics that I made that I'm going to do a little refinements on that we might end up using. But if you have any suggestion for us, I would love to hear it. Any inside jokes that you remember from previous episodes you want us to hook onto? I think White Hot.
White Hot would be a good one.
Would be a good one. Like a White Hot rivalries. something like that would be fun. So whatever springs to mind, send us a message, DM us, send us an email. We would love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Well, hey everyone. Thanks for listening to F1 or F Off. You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. If you want to hit us up, you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter at F1 or F Off. Email us at F1 or F Off podcast at gmail.com. Give us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast. That really helps us out. And be sure to share with family and friends.
And your enemies.
Yes.
And your acquaintances. And that guy that's on the bus that sometimes says little comments about the weather because he clearly wants to talk to you, but you're just not really into it. But he's really persistent. And you kind of want to say something to him, but like you don't know what to say. And so you try and defer the conversation. Just tell him to listen to our podcast.
Yep.
That'll work.
Yep, absolutely.
Just do that.
Great way to break the ice.
Creepy bus driver guy. Yeah. Thanks.